Hi everybody, I'm just coming to you with a pretty quick video today. This is just I'll call it like a part 2 to my indigo dyeing. Several of you very rightly, I think, pointed out that you wanted to see the results of the dyeing. So I wanted to go ahead and show you. I'm doing this without my ring light because I feel like sometimes it actually makes colors of fabric and whatnot worse. So we'll try it this way and see if it works. I'm going to show you first the quilting cotton that I did. So this is all stuff that was just indigo dyed. So this was some quilting cotton. And you can see, so where you see marks like this, that's where the fabric was scrunched or folded in the vat. So if I was going for like really even color, I would want to probably use either a smaller piece of fabric or a bigger vat, and make sure that I'm like opening everything inside the vat to make sure that color can access all parts of the fabric like evenly and equally. But also you can see how by folding the fabric, if you want to, you can get, you know, sort of tie-dye type effects if you're going for that. Now, since I'm planning on using this fabric in small pieces, you're not going to see like big lines like that. You will see a portion of that, and it'll just look like some nice variation. So I'm very happy with how it turned out. I think it's beautiful. Some parts of it are very, very even, and some parts of it less so. There's actually one whole end that is a lot lighter, probably like 12 inches or so of fabric. I clearly left a fold in one end of the piece of fabric that I didn't mean to, but that's fine. It'll be fine. I can just use it that way, right, as a lighter shade of blue in my quilting. And I actually have, I was so inspired last night. I started a new English paper piecing project that I'm going to use with my hand-dyed quilting cottons, because I've been dyeing samples of quilting cotton with each of the cross-stitch fabric colors that I've made. So I'm going to use those, and I'm going to use this as like the background for the quilt. It's going to look beautiful, and I will show that in a future video. You can also see where, like, so if you can see this patterning right there, that's a bit of fabric that was like bubbled up and sitting on the top of the vat. So this part had access to a lot of oxygen and a lot of dye. It had some of that flour that I talked about, like actually on it, sitting on it. So, well, here, I'll show you all the fabrics first, and then I'll explain what I did after they were dry to kind of process them. This, I want to make sure I'm telling you the right thing. This is the Lugana that I dyed. I think that's beautiful. Whew. I think that's stunning. I'm definitely going to at least take pictures. I need to decide how to sell the naturally dyed fabrics, because it is just a very different process than the fiber reactive dyes. Meaning, like, if you order a words if you order a piece of indigo dyed fabric in January, I'm not dyeing that until May. I'm just not. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that, unless I just kind of, but I want to make sure also that I'm dyeing exactly what people want, right? Like, I don't want to or dye a bunch of 32 count, indigo dye a bunch of 32 count if people want 36 count. I don't want to do that. So anyway, I'm going to have to figure out the best way to do that. I don't know if people want to be like pre-ordering it months in advance. I'm going to figure that out. But anyway, this is Lugana. I might end up putting up some of this on the site as ready to ship. We'll see. I mentioned it while we were doing this. Some of my serging was having an issue. One of the needles on my serger came unthreaded at one point. I've actually been going back and reserging things. So this is clearly a piece that has serging issue. But this is linen. This is just the indigo. You can see through it a little bit, but it's beautiful. It's that neat, nice, deep denim blue. And then this is the Ada. And again, you don't have to let these sit again. Actually, this piece I never even, did I serge this? No, I think this was a piece that was just, yeah, this was a piece that I had sitting around for my kid or something. Oh, look at the pattern. It looks like, what is that? Or is it a Rorschach test? Where you look at like an ink blot and see, or an ink blot test, you see what you see? Or tell people what you see? I'm seeing a sea turtle. Eyes. Does anyone else see a sea turtle? I can't hold on to it. Eyes. This is the head, the body, and the like flippers. What do you think? Sea turtle fabric? Anyway, Ada took it beautifully as well, but you can see there's definitely a range and variation in the shading. Do I have all the pieces here? Oh, you know what is this? What did I even dye? This is actually the natural linen. This is the natural linen that I dyed. See that next to the Lugana? Because I didn't dye white linen. I dyed natural, so this started as like a brown, or, you know, tan. So those are my indigo. And then I also told you I was dyeing some turmeric. I don't have any of the only so I have some fabrics that I've dyed with just turmeric, which are like a golden yellow, which I'm going to be putting on the website soon, so you can see pictures there. I probably should have grabbed them to show you. So the thing about natural dyeing too is it's not as much of a, oh, well, I'll finish my thought. Sorry, I'm like all over the place. It's not as much of an exact science as even dyeing is, typically. You just kind of don't always know what you're going to get. Each vat is a little bit different. You can follow a recipe very accurate, very consistently, and that can help you get consistent results, but there's still going to be a lot of variation that you can't necessarily account for. I was going to show you this. So I'm actually stitching, I've barely started. I'm stitching Nightingale. Some of you would have seen this piece of linen before. I'm stitching Nightingale on some indigo dyed fabric that I dyed a couple of years ago. I have my project bag right here. So I'm stitching Nightingale on this piece of opalescent linen that was dyed in an indigo vat. So what I did for this piece, and some of you may have seen this because it was on a previous video. So I had indigo dyed this fabric, and I was going to stitch the Mirabilia where she's sitting on a moonflower or moonflowers on this. And I had washed it post dyeing, but I went to try to start stitching, and indigo was rubbing off on my fingers. It's one thing about indigo, more than a lot of other dyes, it will crock. That's when it rubs off of even a dry fabric onto other things. So this was rubbing off on my fingers as I was stitching. So I was like, okay, that's a bad plan. We're just gonna switch gears right now. And I started moonflowers on, I think it was a standard Wishel fabric. But I still really wanted to use this. I thought about it for a while. I loved it. So what I did was, for several weeks, I actually just washed this piece of fabric with my darks. Now I tend to do most of my laundry on cold water, on like cold. I just threw this in with every load of like jeans and darks. I didn't even bother drying it in between. I just like hang it up. I mean, it would kind of dry sometimes, but we do a lot of laundry in this house. It just got washed over and over and over again, probably at least a dozen times, until the color had lightened quite a bit. It started out, I don't know if you can see the difference. It started out even darker than that probably, or around that. And it got to this. And I kind of tested it out. It's not crocking anymore. It's just, again, like a dark new pair of jeans that's kind of dark. When you first wear them, even if they've been washed, you might get some dye rubbing off on your skin, especially in like high friction areas, like around your waistband, around parts of your legs. You might turn a little bit blue. That's crocking. well, this isn't crocking anymore. So I decided it would be perfect for Nightingale. So this is what this started as a white linen. So this is what it looks like after probably a dozen to 20 washes in a washing machine. What I did with these that I dyed this week was very similar. So I hung these up on a line. You would have seen in the video if you watched the first part of this. I hung these on a line. I let them sit for a day. And then the next day, and I hadn't done this before and it worked beautifully. I usually rinse them like in a bin, like in a tub. I used the garden hose and it worked like a dream. I literally just went outside, I used a garden hose and just sprayed it down. And at first you could see the blue dye just like coming out, but it actually very quickly started running clear. So I rinsed them really well with the garden hose. I let them just dry to the point they weren't dripping anymore, just so I wouldn't like make a mess carrying them around the house. And then I actually dyed my turmeric fabric, so I would have room. I indigo dyed the previously turmeric dyed fabric, so it would have room to hang up. So, well, I'll just show you. So this is one of the fabrics that I turmeric dyed, and then indigo dyed. This is a Lugana, and I actually was expecting a little more green. You can see it's more greenish kind of there in the middle. But to a certain extent, this looks like a lighter denim. And this was earlier when I was saying like, it's kind of not an exact science and you kind of never know exactly what you're going to get. Turmeric, I didn't use tons of turmeric, so I probably had a bit of a lighter yellow shade. And this is also why I only dipped these in the indigo vat briefly. I held them in maybe even for less than a minute, and then I hung them up. I took them out and hung them up because I didn't want a super dark blue that was going to overpower the green or the yellow of the turmeric. I was hoping for a green shade, which I only kind of got. But it's still beautiful. I love it. This is a Lugana. And I probably had a fold or something in there a little too much, or it didn't separate completely, because you can see kind of where the color tone changes a bit. Okay, so the Ada went really well. This is again, this was just scrap Ada for my kit, so it's not serged. And obviously I didn't iron things. But this is pretty green. You can see the yellow and the blue tones in there. It makes such a unique fabric. Like, you can see that it's like layered on top. It's just, there's so much depth to the color and so much complexity. I just love it. I think it's stunning. And I'm not usually an Ada stitcher, but I'm looking at this piece of fabric being like, oh yes, please. That's stunning. It's also possible I held these in longer than I should have. Let's see which is which. I should have labeled them. This has got to be, this would have been the natural linen. So this is the one that was already like kind of tan before I dyed it. And in person, you can see like a greenish tone to it, but it's certainly not green. You know what I mean? It's still blue. It's blue with like a greenish I want to say undercurrent. That's not really right, but that's beautiful. It's like just a complex, this looks very prim to me. Like if you were looking for something, and I love stitching on dark fabrics. I love stitching on fabrics that give the mood of nighttime, but that aren't actually like black or super dark fabrics. Like things for like Shakespeare's fairies, and you know, things where or like Nightingale, where I want it to like evoke a nighttime feel, but I don't actually want it to be like black or even dark blue. I feel like this is like perfect for that. Like it gives that, and I'm also seeing like Halloween on here. It's giving me a lot of those like nighttime vibes without being a super dark fabric. And then this would have been the white linen to start. And you can see the variation. This must have gotten less dye. It might have been at the top. So the bottom of the fabric might have gone in first, and so the top got less on it. When you're only holding something underwater for, 30 seconds or a minute, that a few seconds difference can matter. And then, still beautiful. I love these. If none of y'all want these, I will stitch on them and be perfectly happy. And then quilting cotton, I got a lot of variation that I'm actually very happy about. Oh, it's so good. I wish you guys could see this in person. So this was turmeric dyed again, and then just briefly indigo dyed. And I definitely have areas that are very green, like yellowy green, up to blue. There's areas that got less dye. And so like these would be areas that got less indigo dye but had a lot of turmeric dye on them. So you end up with more of the yellow showing through. This is a beautiful teal through here. I love this so much. This was so fun to do. I love dyeing. And this is a 2-yard piece, I believe. So what I did to make these, so they wouldn't crock anymore. So I had the just indigo vat stuff. I took that down and actually left it in a bucket with some water, and that water never turned blue. So I think my garden hose rinsing got a lot of the excess dye out. But if I touched the fabric, like if I picked it up, some would crock off on my hands. And then I indigo dyed the turmeric fabric and hung that up for like a day. And I just left the other indigo fabric sitting in a tub of water, like a plastic tub, not like our bathtub. Don't do this on your bathtub, you'll stain your bathtub. And then I used the garden hose on the turmeric / indigo dyed fabric. And then, so at that point I had 6 yards of quilting cotton and like 6 or 7 pieces of cross stitch fabric, mostly like fat quarter-ish size. I took all of those, and yesterday I just ran them through the wash. I probably did 5 cycles, maybe. I did one with cold water and some soap, and then I did one with warm water and some soap, because quilts around here, some of these is going to end up in quilts, and quilts around here sometimes get washed in warm water. So I wanted to make sure I had done that. So I washed them in cold water, I washed them in some warm water, and then I just ran several cycles of just water. I didn't have to add soap. I actually keep an old pair of my husband's jeans around for just this purpose. I threw those jeans in there for all of these cycles. It just helped. It helped balance the washing machine and add a little bulk, but it also added something for all of this to rub against that can help crock off any loose fabric. Like, you want the friction in the washing machine because you want that to take off any loose indigo so it doesn't end up on your hands or on your furniture or wherever. And then the last rinse, well, I ran a full cycle, it just was with full water, but the last one I did a color catcher. My color catcher came out with no color on it. So, and then I actually popped all these in the dryer. So I'm feeling confident about using these fabrics. Again, I'm handling them in front of you. Nothing's turning blue. My nails are blue from the other day when I had a glove fail that you would have seen in the previous video. But I'm happy. I'm very happy. These are beautiful. And that vat can sit out there for weeks. I'm sure I will come up with more stuff to dye. I'll have to figure out how I want to do, if I want to offer some cross-stitch indigo dyed fabric now or wait for them. I gotta figure all that out. But it can sit out there for weeks and it'll be fine. And I can refresh it several times if I want to. So that's my indigo dyeing. If any of you end up with some of this indigo dyed fabric or any indigo dyed fabric for me in the future, or if you do an indigo vat yourself, I would just suggest you also washing it. And I would, since you'll only presumably only have one piece, I would do what I did with my fabric I'm stitching Nightingale on. Don't like do a separate load, just throw it in with your jeans, you know, or your pants for as long as you want. If I kept washing this, it would keep losing color. It would lose it slowly, but if I did it long enough, it'd end up like a very light pair of jeans. So yeah, even if like if you buy an indigo dyed fabric that looks good for me, just still I would take probably more precautions than I would with any other sort of fabric in terms of washing it with some laundry. It's not going to hurt it at all. Throwing in a color catcher, trying to make sure that you don't have lots of leftover color bleeding, and then, you know, when you feel comfortable and confident that in your water you're not getting any more indigo, then you should be good to go. So that's it. At some point in the future, I will show you the quilts that I'm starting to make. I just started last night, and I was just so inspired. I like needed to do something with some of these indigo fabrics and with some of the other quilting cottons that I've dyed as I'm going along. Hope you guys are having a good time with your crafting and your stitching, and I'll talk to you soon.